Alrighty, we are live. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here tonight, and welcome to the Zenith Fellowship info session moderated by SEDS Canada. So to start, my name is Marika Decourt. I'm the VP External for SEDS Canada this year, and I'll let the Zenith Fellowship info session moderated by... I can hear myself repeated back to me. Sorry about that. But I'll let the Zenith folks introduce themselves as well.
Sure. Should we just start off?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Awesome. Sounds good. So I'll start off. My name is Hera Nadeem. I'm a co-founder and director for Zenith Canada.
All right. I'm Tahir Murali, also co-founder and director of Zenith Canada Pathways Foundation.
I'm Sam. I'm the director of external relations at Zenith.
I'm Sean Mitra. I guess my title is volunteer. I'm working on the fellowship development side of things. Also working on a space startup, I guess.
Awesome. All right, we're ready to start. So first we'll start with a land acknowledgement. We wish to acknowledge this land on which SEDS Canada and Zenith Canada Pathways headquarters operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work and be based on this land. Go ahead. So just a brief schedule for this evening. We'll be introducing who we are, who is SEDS Canada, and I'll be taking you through our projects and events coming up. And then we'll introduce our partnership with Zenith. And then Zenith will take it away and tell you guys all about how to apply for the fellowship, what it is, and then we'll be having a Q&A at the end. Next slide. So please join us at slido.com. You can enter the code on the screen, or you can scan the QR code now, and there you can enter your questions for the Q&A portion. Just give you guys a few moments here. All right, next slide. So who is SEDS Canada? So we are the Canadian Students for the Exploration and Development of Space. So some quick facts about us. We are Canada's only national student-run nonprofit with the goal of inspiring and empowering students joining the space industry. We are committed to providing experiential learning, non-formal education, and professional development opportunities. And we're a snapshot of the future Canadian space industry, and we're the largest community of space-minded students in Canada. In a report that the Canadian Space Agency released called Exploration, Imagination, Innovation, a New Space Strategy for Canada, we hit on 3 of their goals discussed in that report. So those are to inspire the next generation of Canadians to reach for the stars, harnessing space to solve everyday challenges for Canadians, as well as ensuring Canada's leadership in acquiring and using space-based data to support science excellence, innovation, and economic growth. Next slide. So again, just to give a brief overview of our projects and events coming up. So there's lots of different ways that you can get involved with SEDS Canada. And along the bottom, we have our posters for our projects. So please check out our website, SEDSCanada.ca, where we have the links to apply for those programs and more information, how you can get involved in space research and design projects. And also please keep a lookout for our upcoming conference called Ascension. And our theme this year is To Infinity and Beyond, Innovation in Space. Next slide. So why are we here today? Why is SEDS Canada here with Zenith? So we are actually partners with Zenith Canada, and we have partnered based on our shared values. And those are to support and sustain Canadian student and young professional involvement in the Canadian space sector. And in our partnership, we support each other through cross-promotional opportunities, sharing our networks, and supporting relevant activities such as hosting this webinar tonight. And with that, I'll send it off to Zenith to introduce themselves and their awesome fellowship.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Marieke. So welcome, everyone. We're really excited about this partnership with SEDS, and we're so grateful for the support we've gotten over the past year as we've been developing the program. So just a quick reminder as we start off, their applications are open, and I'll introduce you, if you don't know, what Zenith Canada Pathways Foundation is doing and more about our Zenith Fellowship. So the Zenith Fellowship is developed by the Zenith Canada Pathways Foundation, a not-for-profit here in Canada. Our goal is to build a more inclusive Canadian space sector, and we will do that by providing a fellowship that gives fellows an executive mentor in the a Canadian executive mentor in the space community. So some of our mentors are in the US and some are in Canada. They will get a paid position at a space company in Canada. They'll get to work on cool projects, and that will start next summer of 2022. They'll participate in an annual professional development summit where they can meet with other mentors who are not their mentor, other host companies who are not their host company, as well as the other fellows in the program. And through this, they will gain a community sustaining beyond their 1 year in the program in this Canadian space sector. So if you're seeking to apply to the Zenith Fellowship, you should be an undergraduate student or equivalent, so college, vocational training, anything like that that is equivalent to the undergraduate post-secondary education at an accredited institution, or a recent graduate from one of those institutions within the last 3 years. You should also be a Canadian citizen, a permanent resident of Canada, or a person granted refugee status in Canada who is legally entitled to work. So this is based on the needs of our host companies, and you should also be available to start work in summer of 2022. So we don't have a formal age limit, but we see or foresee that our applicants will fall within the age of 15 to 30. But as long as you're eligible in the other points that I mentioned, you can apply. And even if you're outside the age range, we would ask you to also apply, as this is just kind of a standard we're looking at maintaining for funding. So we would also encourage you to join our Discord community, where many applicants who are applying this year have joined together and are able to ask questions, meet one another, and kind of be supported on their journey as they apply for this fellowship. We hope that this community stays consistent and keeps growing in the coming years as we continue to deliver the Zenith Fellowship, and we hope that those who are not successful can use that community to help them in their next application next year as well. So with the application deadline coming up on the 22nd, there's quite a bit that you need to complete, but don't let it overwhelm you. A lot of this can be done fairly quickly. So the first thing you'll need would be some documents to support your application, which is your resume, an unofficial transcript, and if you're a recent graduate, proof of graduation. Resumes can be 1 to 2 pages as well. The transcript can be unofficial, as we understand that there are specific costs sometimes with the university you're at or the college you're at to purchase official transcripts, but we'll let you know if down the line, as we get into host company interviews and such, if we do require an official transcript, but unofficial is acceptable. You also need 2 letters of recommendation. So this is probably the most time-consuming aspect of this, which is to get to the people that you want to write your letters of recommendation early. These can be really anyone who can speak to your abilities and your goals. It could be a professor, a coach, a mentor, someone that you've worked with on a team, even a friend of yours or a loved one, as long as you understand that a lot of applicants will get different various people writing letters. So they could get a professor, and if you have a friend writing a letter of recommendation, it may not stand out as much, but we still encourage it. And yeah, basically there's 2. There's one for professional goals and one to talk about your character. So if you have a nice mix, then we're confident that it will be helpful towards your application. The next thing you'll need are 2 original works. So this will be one long form essay around 750 words and one multimedia essay. So we'll get into that a bit, as I understand it might seem a little confusing about the areas in which you can select the topics for these essays. But you're basically going to talk about your professional interest in these essays and your community personal interests. And the last thing that you'll need to think about before you start your application or start filling in the application on the website is an answer to 2 short prompts. So we want to know why this program will help you in your career, as well as what does equity, diversity, and inclusion mean to you. So getting into the multimedia and long form essay, this is our way to get to know you more outside of just your academics and the things on your resume. This is your opportunity to tell us your story. And the way that we want you to do this is either write a 750 word essay or a multimedia essay pertaining to the 2 topics. So you'll pick one of the prompts. All of this is detailed on our website at www.zenithpathways.ca/apply. So you could either write an essay about your professional interests and create a multimedia essay about your community personal interests, or vice versa. The multimedia essay can be any format. You could record a video of yourself speaking to the camera. You could edit something together. You could create a piece of art and describe it to us. You could write a poem. You could really do anything and submit that to support your application. We want you to get creative and we want to be surprised as well. So the timeline, as you know, the deadline is coming up on October 22nd. Following that, we will go through a selection committee review of applications in the beginning of November. Successful applicants will be moving on to the semi-finalist round. Following that, we'll have phone interviews. So this could be video or phone call, depending on the preference of the applicant and the selection committee. And after those phone interviews, those applicants will move on to the finalist round. Then in December into January, those finalist applicants will have host organization interviews. So they will meet with different host companies, a part of our program, interview with them. And then if there is a match between applicant and host company, those folks will move on to become fellows of the Zenith Fellowship. And we will announce them in January of 2022. So something new that we have been thinking about as we, since we have opened the applications and that we are officially announcing and putting on our website and telling applicants, is that if you make it to the finalist round and you do not get paired with a host company, you will still get some benefits of the program, which will be an executive mentor or just a mentor within the Canadian space industry. And you'll have the opportunity to come to the annual summit, though we cannot guarantee funding. And you'll still be able to reapply for the class of 2022 and have the opportunity to go through the process and again, try to interview with host companies to see if there's a match next year. So this is our way to try and encourage folks to apply. And even if you're worried that your grades aren't good enough to maybe get into that host company, we still want you to apply because maybe you're being too critical on yourself, but also you're probably still a superstar, and there are still ways that you can benefit from this program, even if you are not selected as a fellow. So that's it from us. If you have questions, reach out to us at info@zenithpathways.ca, and I'll hand it back to Marieke.
Awesome. All right. So now we're entering our live Q&A session. So again, you can find that at slido.com and enter that passcode there, or you can scan the QR code and it'll take you to our page, and you can put any questions there and we'll be answering those live for you now. If you want to just bring up the Slido questions, Hira. Awesome. All right, so let's start it off here with our top question. What is an example of a competitive applicant? What would their profile look like, i.e. grades, extracurriculars, or previous internships? We've heard a lot from Hira. Why don't we take a gander with Sam?
Okay, that's like the hardest question. I'm going to say that there's no one profile for a competitive applicant, because it really, you don't have to excel in every single one of those areas of grades, extracurriculars, and internships, having them all. You just have to show that you're passionate for space. This is not a typical job. We're not looking for someone who has necessarily a traditional career path. This could be your first internship. In regards to extracurriculars, that's a great way to show that you're passionate about space, but we also recognize that not all universities have space extracurriculars options. So it could be just in your community, or maybe you just passionate about stargazing, or, just tell us what you do basically. Regarding grades, we don't have a set cutoff limit. There's no GPA requirement, but our companies might have GPA requirements. So I would say that you probably shouldn't be failing your classes. We want to see that you're still taking care of your academics, but you don't have to be an A student. That is not what we're looking for. And yeah, I would just say the real metric is just someone that's passionate about space, regardless of where it is. But I think maybe this might be a question that other people might want to expand on from the team.
The only thing that I would add to that, because I think it was a really good summary, Sam, is just that we're also looking for people who are community minded. So whether that's not necessarily leadership, but I think that a big part of what we're trying to do is create a fellowship program, like Kira said, that helps each other out, that is working towards building the space community overall within Canada. And so that's one of our long-term goals, is definitely to have people who are community-minded and have demonstrated that through extracurriculars or other activities they've done. So if there was a question lower down, to have the Slido as well open, to ask if, you have to have purely space experience. And I'm going to say, obviously it helps, but I think that that's one good way to demonstrate, another way that you would be a great fit for the program is some good volunteer community leadership experience.
Awesome. So for the next question, how many applicants do you accept into the program? Tahir, did you want to go ahead?
Certainly. And thanks again to SEDS Canada for having us. So we this particular cohort is our first cohort, and we're very excited to be having launched this and generated so much interest from people all across Canada and the world. So in terms of applicants, we have a series of, we have at least 6 host organizations that are intending to commit to take on a fellow in 2022, each of them at least one. Some may choose to take more than one, depending on their needs of their business and what they're intending to do in the next few months. So it could be anywhere up to 10 even, depending on what our needs of the host organization come back with. And we are actually working with a number of other companies and expanding that pool of host organizations potentially as well. So stay tuned. We encourage everyone to apply. There shouldn't be a limitation on how many people do get accepted into the program, because if you don't apply, you don't have a shot. So consider, visit our webpage at zenithpathways.ca/apply. We've got all the content that we're talking about here tonight on that website, and that will provide you a step-by-step process of all the things you need and a nice summary of what we've been able to present you tonight. So if you are kind of on the fence of oh, well, I'm not sure if I should apply, always default to the apply, and we look forward to seeing your application.
Awesome. All right. So Hira, what is an underrepresented group? Does being from outside of Ontario count?
Yes. So an underrepresented group, we define it further in our application, and I'm thinking that it'd be good to have it somewhere on the website. But there are many standard kind of categories that are in the Canadian census and also used within different frameworks with organizations such as NSERC, which we kind of follow from. that cover different areas with women, people of color, people with disabilities, people from low income areas, and LGBTQ, different areas like that that you might see in different applications or in the census. And there are also many that we may not fully understand or know. And so we encourage as well applicants to kind of educate us as well and tell us if we are missing any. We do have options to do such on that. But we are learning and growing, and we are trying to understand best how to serve those communities. And to answer the next question does being from outside of Ontario count? Absolutely. One aspect is geographic diversity. And I actually kind of want to toss this to Tahir, because I'm actually from Ontario, but he's from Alberta. And so our binds together kind of, our importance in geographic diversity has been part of that.
You're absolutely right. And so the beauty of our country of Canada is the mosaic and the fabric that ties us all together across this great country, which includes the geographic diversity as well. So whether you're out in Victoria or enjoying the Maritimes, and you have a passion for space and you are excited to be able to get into this industry and break into this sector, this is exactly why we have this fellowship. So regardless of where you are in the country, province, or territory, that you are also eligible. So we look forward to seeing your applications and some of the great questions we're already getting, which is wonderful. So thanks so much for the engagement.
Awesome. So Sean, why should people apply to Zenith over applying to the company directly for an internship?
Sure. So Hero covered this a little bit already in terms of what we're offering through the program. But I think the two big benefits I would say to somebody looking to apply to Zenith over the company directly is, well, first, the companies have already partnered with us to accept a fellow. So you don't even know if they're going to be hiring a separate student or not. So that just on the cold, hard reality of it, these are guaranteed postings that if you're really passionate about space, I would strongly suggest you should probably look into it. But more importantly, in bigger picture, I would say that the fact that we are trying to build a fellowship program beyond just a job application and a job posting is something that I think could really be of benefit to you, and more importantly, from my perspective, of benefit to the space community as a whole, in that if we can get this fellowship going through the Fellowship Summit, and as well as building this network of fellows across different years, you're going to have a really valuable network that you'll have in contact throughout the years that could help you throughout your space career. And I can say, as somebody who's working on a space startup myself, having that network has been absolutely crucial to getting going, because it can be really daunting at first. And so that's one of the main things we're looking to tackle, is to sort of expand that network, make it easier to get into. And so by applying for this program, even if you don't get placed, if you end up being part of that network, I think that's actually a really huge advantage to anyone looking to land in space.
Absolutely. Sam, do people have to have space work experience to be competitive? And is it okay if they're looking for their first internship?
I always get the eligibility questions. No, you do not have to have space work experience to be competitive. I think it would be actually pretty rare to have space work experience at this point in your career. If you're a student, I know it's very difficult to get. So we're not looking necessarily for space work experience. We're not looking for necessarily internship experience. Like, if you have it, that's great, and that's a part of your narrative. But like I said, I mean, we're looking for the whole package, and we're looking for your passion, whether that be shown through work or through academics. But yeah, you don't have to have space work experience, and you don't have to be a rocket scientist. So.
Tahir, can you tell us, how does someone with no co-op experience stand out in the application process?
So this is a great question. So the beauty of the fellowship is it allows people to demonstrate not only their passions, but also their experience that perhaps isn't necessarily related to formal work experience. The application process allows you to tell us about yourself the best way you choose to. And so that allows us to really understand your background, your qualifications, what you really love and don't love. And through the series of prompts, questions, the multimedia essays and the like. It allows us to get a really great picture of what kind of candidate you are, and allow us then to communicate that to the host organizations as well. And so if you don't have formal co-op experience, that's okay, because you still have other experiences that you may be engaged in the community, whether it's voluntary service or perhaps in other forms of with groups that you may be with, whether it's religious or cultural or what have you, that still count as experience. And so we want to ensure that we capture that and be able to reflect that, because those experiences, whether they're not paid, still contribute to your overall profile as a person. And at the end of the day, will help make a solid base of foundation for your career. So those are the types of things we're also looking for. It's not necessarily just paid co-op experience that you have that will be eligible. We look for all of them. But I will hop off at the moment. You're in very capable hands. So thank you very much for having me tonight.
Take care. Good night.
Good night.
Okay, Hira, can you please tell us, are the internships paid?
Yes, and that's as simple as I can say it. We definitely do not believe in unpaid internships. So if you are selected as a fellow, you can be guaranteed that you will be paid. We ask our host companies to pay minimum wage based on the province or territory in which they operate. So yeah.
That's awesome. And kind of a follow-up question, I'll give it to you too, Hira. Is there a fee to apply?
Definitely not. We are a not-for-profit organization. We're not a recruitment company. We are just trying to facilitate opportunities. And as such, we do not require anyone to pay to access our programming. Yeah.
Awesome. Sean, can you tell us if there are any internship opportunities for software developers or software engineers?
So the short answer is yes, absolutely. I would say that there's definitely a lot of interest in our host companies and software developers and software engineers. But to just tie on to the next question right after that, we are definitely also interested in students from all different backgrounds. One of our goals with this fellowship is to make sure that we are pulling in people from all swaths of different industries into space and making sure that they're getting that access as well. So please don't feel like you have to be an engineer to apply. There certainly will be engineer positions, but marketing, business design, absolutely, I would say that we have companies interested in that help. And so, yes, there's room for that there. I saw it further down to have the slide open as well, so I'm just going to add on to that. For the list of host companies, because there's a few questions about what companies are there, what do they do? We have them on our website, and I think I'm on the YouTube chat as well, so I'm just going to put a link right there. And yeah, should be easy enough to find. And we're still updating that list as well for host companies, so as we continue to work on further partnerships.
Great. So you just answered a ton of questions there. Thank you. So Sam, can you tell us why this fellowship is only open for Canadian, I guess, citizens or passport holders or PR holders?
Sure. To just build off what Sean said first, even on this panel, we're not all STEM. I have a background in business, and I have 2 degrees. One of them was in poli-sci, and now I do policy for the government. And Sean's a lawyer, so we represent more the social science side of this fellowship. So you definitely do not have to be someone in STEM or, again, a rocket scientist to be able to contribute to the space industry. And then regarding why is this fellowship only open to Canadian well, it's Canadian citizens, PRs, or refugees. And the reason is that this is the space industry. It's a dual use industry, and some of the companies may require it, but obviously this is our first year, so we will investigate more in the future.
All right. Hira, can you tell us how personal does the multimedia essay need to be?
Awesome. Yes, I'm glad I got this question. So it can be as personal as you'd like it to be. We are definitely not forcing you to kind of spill your heart out on a page for us if that is not something you're comfortable with. But we do want you to feel encouraged to do whatever level of how personal you want to get in your application that you do feel comfortable with. Basically, the multimedia essay can either be for the professional interest section or for your community and personal interest. So if you want to do a multimedia essay about your professional interest, whether it's like talking about a project you worked on or something that you're inspired to work on later, or something that a team that you're on and you want to do a multimedia essay, it doesn't have to be super personal, but it can just be, you know, a representation of that. But yeah, like it's really up to you, whatever shows you best, you can do that. To give you some insight, I was a Brooke Owens Fellow, which is a fellowship in the US that we're modeled closely after. And so they also had the multimedia component, and I loved it personally because writing essays is not my strongest suit, but I'm quite creative. So I use it as an opportunity to be creative and kind of show different sides of myself that I didn't necessarily get the opportunity to do so in different co-op applications and things like that. So one of my pieces was quite personal. The other one was more, you know, general. So yeah, short answer, whatever you are comfortable with and that you feel represents you.
Great. Sean, can recent master's graduates apply to, or are people eligible if they are currently graduate students?
So unfortunately for our first year, we've decided to focus only on undergraduate programs. So for this first year, we're looking at students that are doing their bachelor's degree or have graduated from their bachelor's degree in the last 3 years. It's just a different sort of category of applicant once we expanded it to master's. And so we didn't feel it was fair to open the pool at this point in time, but hopefully for next year, I'm really personally invested in hoping to see that happen because I feel for the graduate students too that are passionate about this. And I think Kira has a bit of addition to that.
Yeah, if you don't mind. So the question we do often get is like, I graduated from my undergrad 3 years ago, and then I just finished my master's degree, and that took 2 years, and I'm still within 3 years of graduating from my undergrad. So if it wasn't fully clear, like Sean said, we are focusing on post-secondary education and people who have graduated just from post-secondary education. And yeah, we will investigate further in the coming years to have opportunities for beyond.
All right. I think Sean answered the question about what companies are currently part of the program before. So if you check out the Zenith Canada website, those are there. All right, so the next question I'll hand over to Sam. Would this program still be helpful for someone currently? And I think we just answered this question, so just correct me. So young professionals are not eligible.
So I think it would depend. I mean, are they a young professional already in the space industry? Then like probably it wouldn't be very helpful to your career just because it's only a 4-month, you know, internship and you already have a job at, say, a space company. But if you are recently graduated and you're unemployed or you're underemployed, as in you're working in a job that's not a career field, you know, it's not really what you studied, then definitely you're eligible because it's up to 3 years at university. But we're going to take into consideration, like, what are you doing right now? If you're building the Canada arm and MDA, probably this is not really on the pathway because, you know, there are other people trying to break into the industry. But if you're studied aerospace or passionate about it and you're not doing it right now, then this could be a way of changing your career.
Awesome. Thanks for the clarification. Hira, can you tell us what would we be doing at the companies that we get to work at?
Yeah, so it really depends. So we have quite a few different areas which our host companies work in. So for example, I would take like Sinclair Interplanetary is an institution in Toronto who focuses on manufacturing of satellite parts. So students who would be matched with them would be working on production tasks as well as research and development tasks to kind of build and deliver these satellite parts. Or a student working at, you know, GHGSat, which is a company that is focusing on tracking emissions throughout the world. They could be working on data analytics. So they could be working not hands-on, but more in like a software background, kind of working in that kind of area. So it really depends on the host company. And again, I would encourage you to check them out. But the goal for all of them is to give meaningful work experience to fellows. So to give you something that you can kind of take ownership over and feel proud of at the end of your internship and contribute to the company. So there are different areas that you could be working in. Yeah.
Awesome. I feel like a natural follow-up question to that is how large are the businesses that are taking students?
Yeah, and I can take that one as well. So taking my example again, Sinclair Interplanetary, they're quite a small company. And if you heard our info session last week, Julia Gibson, who is a current satellite aerospace engineer at Sinclair, mentioned that they're size of 10. So you could be working in a very small team, or you could be working at a company like GHGSat, which is a bit bigger, around 30, 40 or more. I think they're actually up to 100 or so now. So it ranges in the companies that you could work for. And if you make it to the finalist round, we will be gauging inputs from finalists as well in terms of the different host companies, giving you more information about what they are working on and some more information about what their company culture is like, so that you can kind of also see if you would like to work there. But ultimately, we're basing it upon hiring needs of the companies. So you could work at any of them, which is pretty exciting because honestly, they are all very cool.
For sure. Here, I'll give you a break. So I'll hand it to Sean. If the applicants get the fellowship, would they need to relocate? Is that an option or mandatory, or are they only eligible for fellowships in their home province?
So that's something that is going to ultimately rest with what the host companies are going to need. We've asked that they all consider remote work, as our interest is trying to make this open to as many people geographically as possible without making it too strenuous. So definitely not only in your home province, to start from there. Relocation is definitely an option, especially with COVID though. I would guess, I can't guarantee because this is still in discussions with our host companies, but I would guess that remote work is probably going to be an option for a number of them, depending on what you need to do. And then I think that answers the question. Hira, is there anything I missed? I just see you sort of nodding, so.
No, yeah, that's pretty much all of it. And actually, this is something that we're in the works of in the next couple of weeks as we are following up with our host companies, is creating a chart on our website that you can see kind of which companies have remote positions. We already know that a couple can support fully remote internships. So if relocation is not something that you can do or is not being supported by the host company, then you can work remotely and get that experience as well. So keep an eye out on that. And again, if you make it to the finalist round, that is something that we will also provide to them.
All right, Sam, can you tell us if the companies will be paying minimum wage, or what's the salary expectation?
So the salary is hard for us to say because it depends on the company, it depends on the job, and it would depend on the location. But what Zenith can guarantee is that it's at minimum, the minimum wage for that province, which is why we usually state that, but we can't guarantee what range it would fall under. There's just too many companies and too many factors. But I'd also point out that in addition to getting paid a minimum wage, you also get to travel to the Zenith Summit, so pending COVID. And so there is an added non-paid perk to this.
Very cool. So I think the first question here was already answered. How many people will be accepted as fellows this year? So it depends. I think Tahir said up to 10. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. Woohoo, look at me answering questions. Sean, can you tell us if in the application is experience in space industry or clubs weighed more heavily than potential, or is being a passionate space nerd enough? I think you touched on this a bit earlier, but I don't know.
Sure. And maybe sorry, cut you off there. Okay. I would probably combo that with the question after that. So I would say that being a passionate space nerd is definitely enough, assuming you can stand out in some way, whether it be through an exceptional multimedia response, perhaps community experience, other examples of capabilities to, contribute well to Canada's space community and also to the host company themselves. So definitely don't feel like if you don't have space experience, you can't apply. That's not the intent, and I would say that it certainly helps, but I wouldn't necessarily give more weight just to somebody just because they happen to be on a CubeSat team at a university versus somebody who, is done a lot of really great research work perhaps, but maybe not directly in a space project. So an example of a non-STEM internship experience, I can't guarantee anything, but an example that would come to mind is, for instance, if you're on the marketing team and you have a business degree or working on a business degree, you could be working on all of the marketing efforts for one of our host companies. They likely loop you in terms of developing materials, making sure things are getting posted. I'm formulating a little bit in my head here a hypothetical, so I don't want to guarantee like that's the only thing that's going to happen. But the point being is that we're talking to all of our host companies and making sure that they understand that they're to be providing significant work experience. So we definitely don't expect to have any of our fellows sitting, in a room just doing photocopying or something like that. So it will be a part of operations. It will be a significant contribution to the host company. I feel like I'm drawing a bit of a blank here if either Sam or Hira wants to step in terms of a hypothetical non-STEM experience that someone might get.
Yeah, I think you covered it. If you mentioned marketing and things like business, yeah, I think you've covered all the bases there.
Great. Sam, can you tell us, do you know what hours are expected per week for interns?
Yeah, so the internship is a typical internship. So it's 16 weeks full-time meaning it's between 35 and 40 hours a week, depending on how you count that. Some employers don't count lunchtime or some do. So it's just, I know in government we don't. So it's between 35 and 40. So it does meet all of the co-op requirements if people are curious about that.
Hira, we have someone here who's curious about the Zenith Summit. What would the format be? Do they have to pay for their travel? Who is invited? i.e. mentors and host companies? Tell us all about it. Spill the beans.
Sure. Yeah. So this will be our first summit. So bear with us as details are not finalized yet, but we hope to, poll our fellows and also learn what they are looking forward to in a possible first iteration of the summit. But basically it will be a couple of days. We're still deciding how long. And fellows will be able to go to the area if it is in person in which the summit is being hosted. You will not have to pay. So part of this program is paid travel to the summit as a perk of being a fellow. And we will speak with your host companies about taking time off from your job for the days of the summit, as this is part of the commitment. So the people who will be invited will be the host company. So there will be representatives from all of them. So even if you're paired with one company, you can still meet with others and following your internships. We are hoping that you can then network and work with other companies in that group and have that help you leverage in your career. Mentors will also be there. And there was a question lower down as well about who the mentors are. And just like with the host companies, this information is on our website. If you go to zenithpathways.ca under our team, there's a little our mentors, or if you go to zenithpathways.ca/our mentors, our dash mentors, then you will find it. But basically we have some pretty cool folks from around the world who are our mentors, and they are Canadians who have either stayed in Canada or have broken into the US or international space industry. And they're really awesome and would really love to meet you. And so they will also be at the summit and available to be mentored, hang out with you as well. And there's also opportunity for you to bond with your fellowship class, work on a project together of some sort. And yeah, lots of fun stuff, a lot of bonding that we are excited to plan after we're done selecting the class.
Let's see. I feel like a logical follow-up for Sean. What are the work term, I guess maybe time frame? What months or weeks in the summer does the fellowship occur?
So again, I would say that this is ultimately going to rest between the selected fellows and their specific host company, but we're looking at 4 months from, sorry, I'm working backwards and wrong. So August, July, June, May is what we're looking at. But the very specific weeks, I think we would expect that our host companies be willing to work with the fellows to make sure that, you know, they're not missing weeks of class or something, or having to reschedule an exam just to make their start date.
Awesome. This is a cool question. I think it's open to everyone. Why did you join the space industry? Who wants to take it off?
Okay, I'll start.
Go for it.
Because I think I'm the most recent space industry person on the panel right now, anyways, depending on how you want to define it. But so I think it started with my personal interest in space. I've always been a sci-fi nerd, loved following rocket launches and sort of the latest news. But going to law school didn't really seem like a big option for me at the time. And so I sort of kept up to date on sort of new developments in space law. I wrote my longest paper in law school on sort of the 2015 legality of asteroid mining, which ended up being, I'm very proud to say, my model ended up being pretty close to the model that the United States passed later that year for their Space Commercial Act. It was a nice humble brag. It was definitely also sourced on a number of experts that had also said similar things, but I guess it just always been something I was really interested in, and then ended up being something that I didn't really pursue. I did a number of other lawyer and articling student roles in the number of years up until last year, and then I was a COVID layoff, and so I was left wondering what the heck am I going to do with my life, and so I was looking at options, what I wanted to do, and I started networking, and I realized that I knew more people than I thought that were involved in space, and that there were a lot of opportunities available online, especially during COVID, to virtually attend a number of different events, sort of get up to speed. And so one thing led to another. I met the now CEO of the startup I'm working on, the Lunar Water Supply Company. And that led to me signing on as a founder and chief legal officer. So I like to imagine that I'm a great example of what best case scenario networking can lead to you. It's certainly not a guarantee, but I think that the space community is really welcoming. And if anyone ever wants advice on how to get over the fears of like cold messaging people, feel free to message me. You can find me on LinkedIn, I think is probably the quickest way to find me. Otherwise, yeah.
Awesome. Gotta love a quick LinkedIn plug. Kira, did you want to comment?
I guess like very briefly, like similar, I love space, but I never thought as an engineer that I would kind of work in space. I always in high school wanted to be an astrophysicist, but when I got to university, my love of playing around with hardware kind of got the best of me, and I thought that would be a more a better decision for me to pursue engineering. And also coming from like a background, my family is Pakistani Canadian, so like it's very, your parents may say the same thing. If anyone's parents would be like, pick a career where you are going to make money. And like my parents didn't know that the space industry had opportunities. And honestly, in the like 5 years since I started university, it wasn't as much, there wasn't as much out there. It didn't seem like it, even though it was happening kind of quietly. So I didn't know about it. But yeah, so I picked engineering. I wanted to work on the Canadarm. I wanted to be in robotics. I did not get into robotics because I don't have the greatest grades. Like I am pretty good when I'm working on projects, but testing I'm not the best at. Long story short, I failed a course in my second year, and I just thought, I guess I will just be an electrical engineer and work in power or something. Maybe if someone will hire me. And basically, I heard about a satellite team on campus, and that kind of sparked my interest and showed me that, you know, any background it's needed for a space mission. Like, you can be in any background. So I worked on different aspects of the satellite, from hardware to software to even marketing. So that really rejuvenated my love for space, made me see myself in a career in space. And so it has launched me on different paths to continue that and help other people who share that.
Super inspirational. Sam?
I don't have a really inspirational story. I actually fell into space rather than actually seeking out, despite growing up in Mark Garneau's, like, he was my MP growing up, and having him being a keynote at every major school event, and going to space camp. I was not like a space nerd. I wanted to be a diplomat. I was, you know, doing Model UN and stuff. And so I applied when I graduated to the Department of Foreign Affairs, got a job, and I sat down the first day and they're like, "You're going to be the space trade commissioner." And I was like, okay, I know nothing about space really. And I fell in love with it. I mean, I feel like I strongly suggest everyone to go look up NASA's motivational, not movies, but like YouTube clips where they're like the Artemis generation and we're going back to the moon. And like, I think that's another thing. Like, they call the Apollo generation the generation that went to the moon. So anyone that worked on that, the average age was a 25-year-old white man was working on Apollo and bringing the first man to the moon. And now our generation is the Artemis generation, and we're going to go back to the moon, and we're going to land the first woman and first person of color. And Canada gets to be a part of that because we are on, I should know this, I think we're on one of the early missions to at least circle the moon. So as a Canadian, all these people, I hope you're all will go watch the NASA videos and will feel equally inspired to join the industry. But yeah, I did not seek this out. This is something I fell into fully, luckily.
That's so awesome. Or rather, maybe you were launched into. Just in the interest of time, let's get back to some other questions here. So Sean, can you tell us, as an international student studying at a Canadian post-secondary institution, are they still eligible to apply?
So that depends on your status within Canada beyond just being a student, unfortunately. It's a bit of a complex question, but the short answer is if you're able to work otherwise in Canada, you probably are able to apply. I feel like Kira is giving me a face. Do you want to step in?
Oh yeah, sorry. So I think, yeah, the confusion is being a post-secondary student at a Canadian university. So international students are unfortunately not eligible. As mentioned, it's for this year, definitely our first year. And we will investigate further, as Sam mentioned, we are focusing on Canadian citizens, permanent residents, and people granted refugee status in Canada. So this is, like Sam mentioned, due to the fact of our host companies operate in space. And so there are regulations related to that. And so some of them have those regulations. And so for there to be the most success in us matching applicants to companies, we are requiring this. So this is what we have committed to in our first year, and we are investigating further for future years. But that is why the eligibility is as such for citizenship, unfortunately. But yes, yeah.
All right. Sam, is there a possibility for an extension in the internship for those who have a 12-month internship program?
I mean, there's no guarantee of that, but I guess our fellowships are for 4 months. But say you're working directly with the company, and if they offer that to you, then there could be. But that is not something that you'll be able to determine once you're selected or once you start. It's more something that would happen organically while you're working at the company.
Okay, Sean, if people don't make it to the final round, can they reapply?
Absolutely. We encourage people to do so. Hopefully going through the process will be educational. And I know our hope is to provide as much feedback as we can to anyone who asks. Depending on how many applications we get, I don't think we can promise that we'll get significant feedback to everyone, but I certainly would say that, yeah, if you don't become a finalist this year, please reapply next year.
Hira, what is a day in the life at one of the partner corporations for an intern?
So again, it depends on the place that you get matched, and I can again guarantee you, we've all spoken with the host companies, and they're awesome. They're really wanting to make the experience great. I can't speak for one company because I was a previous intern there, and that is Sinclair Interplanetary. And yeah, just working at a space company is really fun, regardless of what you're doing or just whatever you're doing there, because it's a great experience. The people are so welcoming, and you just get to say that you work on space, and you also get the privilege of being like, I can't disclose that because I work on space. So yeah, it really does depend on where you end up, but I can definitely guarantee that they will be great experiences.
Awesome. Sam, what is the work term schedule? I think this was kind of answered earlier, but.
Yeah, so the work term schedule, well, like I said, it'd be a summer term. So it'd start probably, I should know this, I think it's May. I think it's May, June, July, August. So it's 4 months. So probably the first week of May and then ending the last week of August. That's 16 weeks. And yeah, I think that's it.
Sean, can people submit their co-op resumes?
So the programs I went through didn't have co-ops. I don't know if there's something specific to that defines a co-op resume, but if it's just the resume you submitted to your co-ops, I would say yes. Yeah, I guess maybe if you want to be a bit more specific on our Discord, I'm happy to chat with you about it. But generally speaking, I would say if your resume is polished from your co-op applications, absolutely reuse it.
Hira, how many fellowships are being offered and how likely is it for a first year to earn the position?
Sure. So as mentioned a couple of times now, so around 6 host companies, so 6 to 10, depending on how many more we get before the application and the selection closes. First years are encouraged to apply. Being completely transparent, in your first year, it's hard to be competitive against, like, say, a third or fourth year applicant, but we still encourage you because we don't know what your experience is like and what your passion is like. And so it is honestly possible for a first year to obtain these positions based on your application. But the best part about being a first year applying is that you can apply next year and the year after and the year after. So there are still ways that you can get into the program. And yeah.
All right, Sam. So one person's commented, small companies like startups typically have high turnover rates. If a company has to downsize during the summer, will we be let go?
I'm kind of confused with the question, but no, you won't be let go in the summer. I mean, we have the host companies have made commitments to hire someone for 4 months, the full term. And I would say that the Canadian space industry is currently taking off right now. There's been a lot of contracts awarded. And like I said, we're going to the moon. So I don't foresee these small companies having high turnover rates like that. In the space world, everything's a long lead time contract. So, I mean, the companies that I guess the answer is the companies that we're working with aren't expecting to go through those areas.
I can maybe address, I think I get where that's coming from. Also having been a lawyer in my other job, working with startups often, the companies that we're working with are a little bit larger than probably what you're imagining are in terms of startups. There's certainly some of them are younger companies, but they're still fairly established at this point. So I think the likelihood of them having to downsize to that degree, as Sam said, is fairly low. And I think you can take some confidence in the knowledge that these are companies that will be secure for the duration of your internship, your fellowship. Furthermore, for the legal answer, the host companies are all signing host agreements that bind them to employing you for the duration of your fellowship. So they don't really have the right to just terminate your fellowship without breach of contract. And it probably wouldn't be economically efficient to do that when it's only a 4-month contract anyways. So worst case scenario, which I really don't foresee happening, it's even highly unlikely that if they did have to downsize, that an intern that was only on for the summer would be the one to be downsized.
Awesome. That was super comprehensive. Thank you. Hira, can you tell us, even if we don't make it to the final round, are the host companies accepting non-Zenith applicants?
Yeah, for sure. So yes, the short answer is yes. So the reason why we're doing the selection so early, like many of you who are in co-op might realize, like, I don't even apply for summer co-op until like January, is because you're going to want to apply for summer co-ops in January. So if you want to go through Zenith, and we want to help facilitate that, we want to get you through the program and the application early enough that if you are unsuccessful, you can still apply for those companies next year if they are hiring. So yeah.
All right. Just looking for the most, because we're running out of time here. Sam, are there any companies participating that actually build and launch orbital rockets?
So our list of companies currently, as it stands, is on the website. And so if we do, I mean, there is still time for us to add host companies. And so if there are companies that would fall in that category, you may see them added to the website. But currently, are there companies, oh, I just lost the question. Are there companies that launch rockets? I don't think so, not right now. Not that I know of, unless someone's secretly building a rocket. But potentially, I mean, I'd say keep watching the website, you know, because like I said, we're constantly talking to Canadian industry. And if you want to encourage companies to to work with us, that is an option as well.
Great. I think it'd be good to end just to reiterate the eligibility piece here. So what if you graduated summer 2018, now 3+ years after graduation, are you still eligible?
So this actually raises a good point that I will clarify even on our website. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sam and Sean, but I think it would be, sorry, I'm like reading something else. So yeah, I think it would not be eligible because at the time of getting into your internship, you'd be 3+ years. And so like, for a 4th year, they would be a 4th year entering their internship. A 3rd year, they'd be entering their internship following that. So you'd be beyond your 3+ years entering the internship. So does that follow, Sam, with what you would also agree? Okay. So yeah, unfortunately, you would not be. But I would still encourage you to apply to these companies because they're really cool.
I just wanted to hop in. This is kind of out of order, but just to the actually building rockets question. As someone who, you know, kind of came relatively fresh to the space industry, I think one of the more eye-opening things for me is how much ancillary stuff is going around with rockets, even if you're not actually the ones building the rockets. For instance, a lot of these companies are building satellites. And so you might not actually be building the rocket, but you're still having to look at payload requirements, how you survive a launch, how you survive the launch and then get into orbit. And there's a lot of rocket related things that still are very much, I think, what lands in sort of the stereotypical image of like space science and monitoring launches in that sense, without necessarily being actually building the rockets.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to keep on clarifying eligibility and completely agree with Sean on that point. So yes, and thank you for bringing this to our attention, as there definitely I can see why there would be confusion about this. So what we will do is we'll make it clear on the website. And if you join our Discord and kind of like stay in touch with us over social media, but keep an eye on the website and we'll clarify this. But yeah, we'll make it clear about from when, like it might be just easier for us to put the year in which you were graduated, like the latest to be eligible for the 3 years. And we will update that on our website and provide some clarity on that front of it. And just to close out, since there are only a couple questions, we did not, this is our first year, so we don't know how many people applied last year. This will be our first year doing so. And the acceptance rate will be dependent upon, like I mentioned in my presentation, the host companies, you'll be matched to be within that 6 to 10 interns through the fellows. But if you apply and you're not accepted and matched with a host company and you make it to the finalist round, in which you are then given the opportunity to interview with host companies, if you're not successful to get matched, you will still be provided some benefits of the program, which is a mentor, ability to attend the annual summit, though funding won't be guaranteed as it is for fellows. And also you can still reapply the following year if you're still eligible. And which leads to the last thing, which is the same opportunity. That is our goal. That is why we exist as a not-for-profit here in Canada, and why we are doing this and building this is to continue to do this each year and provide more opportunities, more companies, more mentors each year, so that we can keep growing and sustaining talent here in Canada.
Woohoo. All right. I think with that, we'll have to close for tonight. So thank you so much to everyone who attended our webinar. We hope that it clarified your questions and that you're all excited to apply for the fellowship. For those, this recording will be available to watch back if you want to re-clarify anything. And for those who are watching the recording, you can send your questions to Zenith, and I'll just get Kira to reiterate where they can send those.
The questions to our email? Yeah, so it's info@zenithpathways.ca. So one of us is probably in the YouTube chat. We can also link it there.
Perfect. All right, with that, we'll say good night. Thanks, everyone, and happy applying. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.